With President Trump meeting with allies amid the global trade battles and earnings season upon us, which of these developments should investors focus on? Joining us to discuss is David Kelly, Chief Global Strategist at JPMorgan Funds, and Andrew Parmentier, the Chief Strategy Officer at Highland Capital. Thanks for joining us, David. You expecting a pretty decent earnings season. The question is, what's baked into the market at this point, and what's it going to take focus away from trade?
Well, I do think it's going to be a really good earnings season. A hint of this is the fact that during the second quarter, analysts actually upped their estimates for what the second quarter earnings would do. Now, that's very unusual. In fact, it's only happened 2 times in the last 30 quarters. So what I think is going on is we've had a very strong GDP quarter. I think nominal GDP growth could be 5.7% year over year. That's the strongest in 12 years. And with strong GDP growth, strong oil prices, the dollar down still 5%, that all is all setting up a very good earnings season. I think that will actually dominate the trade discussions, because I think because of politics in the fall, the Trump administration will probably pull back a little bit in terms of its trade rhetoric for fear of blowback from retaliation. So I think earnings is going to win this round.
And Andrew, do you agree? Do you think earnings is going to outweigh trade in the next couple of weeks?
Maybe in the next couple of weeks, but I definitely disagree as we kind of look toward the edge of Q3, Q4. The next round of trade negotiations, particularly with China, they're talking about numbers in the 250 to 500 range. And while I don't think that we'll see those imposed at the end of the day, I think that it's a complete downshift from where we are now as it relates to the importance that the tariff discussions will have on the market. I will say, though, the PBOC coming out and saying that they won't use the renminbi devaluation as a trade weapon is a huge win for President Trump, and I'm shocked that people aren't talking about it. If you look back at the last time they did that, they saw more than $1 trillion renminbi in outflows from the market going into 2017. So I think the U.S. is effectively using its leverage. I don't think it's about the $34 billion in tariffs that have been announced, but I do think it's about limiting access of Chinese companies to the United States capital markets, the export of sensitive U.S. technologies. And I think that structurally, over a long period of time, the U.S. has got to fight and maintain its position as an exporter of innovation, because that's our value proposition.
David, on the trade front, when it comes to earnings, do you expect this to show up in any meaningful way in margins, cost inputs rising from different companies, in decisions on capital spending, perhaps, and the uncertainty that is accompanying the trade, or maybe not at all?
No, it'll show up in these conference calls by CEOs as they talk about their earnings, and it's really an uncertainty tax right now, because the problem is we don't know what tariffs we might threaten to impose, and we don't know how other countries might retaliate, and that will tend to slow investment spending. But there's a head of steam behind the U.S. economy right now anyway, so I'm not sure that's all a negative. But I mean, I do want to emphasize it. I was watching the show before yours where Martin Feldstein talked about how the tariffs, how the Chinese trade deficit isn't the point. I agree completely that we need to do something about the theft of intellectual capital and strong arm them into stopping that. But so long as we run a big budget deficit, so long as we as a nation live beyond our means, we will have a huge trade deficit with somebody if it's not China. We need to tackle our fiscal deficit if we're ever going to fix our trade deficit.
Okay, gents, thanks very much.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.